New data from the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis is indicating that the biggest real estate crash in Canadian history just happened. That's right, if you blinked, you missed it. And I'm going to tell you exactly how big it was and how it compares to the financial crisis of 2008 in the US, which was arguably the biggest crash in North American history. And I think you're going to be surprised at how similar the numbers are. But before we get into it, my name is Nolan Matthias, and if you want the latest Canadian real estate and finance news, this is the place for you. So do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and hit the like button so more people like you can see this video. And if you want to get a copy of my new book, Mortgage Secrets, just go to mortgagesecrets.ca, pay the shipping and handling, and it's yours for free. Okay, so this one's a doozy. The Federal Reserve Board of St. Louis released new data that focuses on the Canadian real estate market and the real residential real estate prices, which means the real estate prices adjusted for inflation. And the data is now indicating that it is the single biggest real estate crash in modern history. And if you blinked, you missed it because it was in Q1 of 2023. And the crash compares with the numbers from 2008 in the US. Yes, our real estate prices fell almost as much as the real estate prices fell in the Great Recession. So I just got to take you in and show you the data because I can imagine you sitting there right now and not believing me, not believing that it was this bad and not believing that there isn't more to come, because I know a lot of people like to watch this channel and they hope for a massive crash in real estate prices. They think it's coming, and the reality is it already came and it passed. So let me start by showing you the real residential property prices for Canada. This is data that goes back to the early 1970s. It shows the real estate crash of the mid 80s. It shows 2008, and it shows the most recent number, which is a 19% decline in real housing prices when adjusted for inflation. Now, why would you adjust prices for inflation? Well, the reason you do that is in order to get the value relative to everything else. Now, obviously, the nominal number was we were down about 14% year over year in Q1, but increased inflation actually made the decline relative to the price of other things even greater. And this is what the numbers look like compared to just the normal residential prices. So as you can see, we saw that 14.96% decline, but again, when adjusted for those inflation numbers, that decline becomes even greater. And as you can see, the prices, when adjusted for inflation, typically are pretty similar to what they would be compared to the normal prices. Now, there's a couple of times where that's deviated, obviously back in 1983, where we saw massive inflation, and therefore the declines in real estate prices were compounded by that inflation. And when we add in CPI data to this graph, as you can see, it's that high inflation amount that really adjusts these numbers, especially on the way down. And what I find even more interesting than the 19% drop in the real price of real estate is how this compares to 2008 and the financial crisis in the US. Because when I add in the US numbers, and these are these two bottom numbers here in 2008, what you can see is that in 2008, the real residential property prices for the United States dropped by 19.45%, and the nominal drop was about 15%. Compare that to Canada in 2023, and the real residential property prices dropped 19.1%, and the residential prices dropped 14.96%. So, in Q1, year over year compared to 2022, the adjustment in real estate prices was comparable to the real estate crash of 2008 in the US, which means that the real estate crash in Canada has actually already happened. Now, granted, there could be more stress on the market going forward, but all signs with respect to immigration and employment are suggesting that we've hit the bottom and prices are starting to trend back up. So what this tells us is that if you're waiting for the market bottom, well, you probably missed it because it probably happened in January, February, March of this year. And while we can't use past data as an indicator of what could happen in the future, if that was the bottom, then we could start to see housing prices continue to increase for the long run, meaning that every day that you wait, you could potentially be paying higher and higher prices. And especially as the Bank of Canada seems to be at the end of the rate hiking cycle. Now, I'm not telling you to go out and buy real estate because the market's bottomed. I'm not making that statement. I'm not making that prediction. But what I am suggesting is that if you are looking at purchasing property, and one of the things you're looking at is the timing of the bottom of the market, the chances of hitting it are pretty much slim to none. So the best time to purchase a property isn't when you think you're at the bottom of the market, but when you think that you can purchase a property and be able to afford it for the long run. Buying decisions on housing need to be buying decisions that are made with a 5, 10, 15, 20-year time horizon. Now, if Canadians find themselves in a position where they can't make their payments, if there's mass defaults, could this change? Could the market drop even further? Absolutely. But as of right now, the indicators that we have at the moment indicate that market values are increasing, there is still a balance between supply and demand, and that job numbers and interest rates are projected to remain stable, which means the data that we have at this moment, assuming that you aren't getting into a massive bidding war, tells you that there's no massive volatility in the market at this time. So for all the doomsdayers who are waiting for the biggest market crash in Canadian real estate history, well, the data says that it already happened. Not to say it won't get worse, but I think most of the people who were looking for that massive price decline actually missed it on the way down. Oh, and if you want more information on the Canadian real estate market, check out this video right here.